call the meeting to order. It's 6:07. So to see this, here we have on Zoom, we have Rocco.
Hello.
Rocco, yeah. Ali. Chris, Julianne, and our town council liaison, Ed Dombrowski, and economic development director, Erin Kokinda. If I get it right?
Yeah.
So we're going to start. I see we have a couple of folks from the public. Does anyone want to give any public comment?
Scott McCauley has his hand raised.
Okay, Mr. McCauley?
Madam Chairman, the way we normally handle it is we would have 3 minutes, and then generally no back and forth dialogue. But it's
No back and forth.
It's within your discretion, but generally that's how we put your public comment and other.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And then
What I have on the agenda is the public comment is limited to 10 minutes.
in total.
In
total.
In total.
Okay.
So when folks speak, it's nice that, there's a couple of folks here. So just be mindful that there's other public here.
Sure. I'll try and be brief. I do have a number of things I wanted to go through. First of all, my name is Scott McCauley, 32 Walden Road. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I was the one who wrote to the town and to the board to point out the fact that 2 of the members from this board had not chosen to be sworn in at town hall. Subsequently, I had a bunch of emails go back and forth with town council, Mr. Mayo. I sent emails to the board as well, but never heard back from the board members. It's my understanding from Mr. Mayo that 2 of the votes need to be retaken because there was not a quorum at the time. I still have legal questions out with Attorney Mullen because there was some questions about whether people who are not sworn in can make a motion or second a motion, which would further complicate other votes that were taken during that time frame. So I'm waiting to hear back on that. My understanding, and from what I understand, if you're not sworn in, you are not a member of the board, you are a nominee. So you would not be able to make any type of motion. If it was common law, yes, but under Robert's rules, you'd have to suspend the rules, and that would take a 2/3 vote to do that. So I have legal questions about that. So I'm waiting to hear back. There was some question about my question about whether this board had the legal authority to enter into contracts or dispense funds. And I guess the ruling was because it's ARPA, it's a whole different funding source that it comes from. But with that, there comes an ARPA grant agreement that was drafted by Mr. Mullen, which I got a copy of the other day, but I'm not sure if the board has actually got that yet. I was surprised to find that it wasn't dated, it was not signed, and it was not executed. And I feel that anything that this board has engaged in as far as getting into discussions with people or allocating funds for different projects or maybe getting into contract negotiations with people was a little bit of putting the cart before the horse, because without this contract first being voted on by your board and agreeing to the terms and then being signed by both the town council and your board, it was not legally executed yet. So you would not have the authority to enter into any of this. And with the pending things that need to be revoted, there may be more. I would say that if it was something, items unanticipated to go on to the agenda this evening, that I would hope that's not the case, because that's something that probably should be disclosed to better suit the open meeting law publications. So I just wanted to put that out there. I think I've tried to get caught up in a lot of town meetings lately, a lot of boards and committees, but with 40 to 50 different boards, it's hard to keep track of everything that's going on in town. I have tried to get caught up in meetings with this. I think that there should have been guidelines set up to begin with, that this is what we're going to fund, these particular items. Take your choice, businesses apply. I think conversations about being like Newport and Newburyport, very lovely towns, both on the ocean. We're not on the ocean. Murals for $100,000, big waste of money. I think it would be better suited to make storefronts that might not be handicap accessible. Awnings downtown, flags downtown would be great to see. I think any monies that haven't been discussed at this point, I think should get pulled back by the town council, and I'm going to make that a recommendation. They put it towards other things like the solar panel project, because I think there's a lot of stuff that's just maybe well-intentioned, but I think it's just frivolous spending. So I just wanted to put that on, point that out in case everybody on this board is not aware. I don't know if everybody gets the distribution emails that come in. I don't know if all this information's been discussed with the board, but I'm just letting you know. So thank you very much. Sorry it takes so much time.
Thank you, Mr. McCauley. Ms. Scott,
Yeah, Julie has her hand. Yep.
Ms. Scott, you have your hand raised?
Hi, Julie Scott, Central Street, Wakefield. That's all new information to me, and actually, if I had known that that information was shared with the previous speaker earlier, I would have hoped that the agenda would have been changed. Surprised what I heard. I've also been asking you guys about this specific application process to be on this committee and every other town committee. On the specific application to be on this committee, it says you have to be a Wakefield resident. They're looking for Wakefield residents to volunteer for the community. So I would love if I've found great value in some of the discussions I've heard. The two people who might not be residents of Wakefield have a lot to add. I was hoping they could sort of guide the committee, the council moving forward and not be voting members, but apparently some in town hall think that that criteria to be a Wakefield resident has changed. Anyway, my name is Julie Scott, Central Street, Wakefield. Tonight's agenda has no town councilor updates, and all of your previous agendas have. I hope that the update that was due last month is brought forward tonight as far as the Envision Wakefield issue. As well, not on the agenda tonight, but we were told it would be from last month, is the micro transit and transportation management seed funding. I hope that's discussed at some point. There's no discussion on the agenda about Town Day or the community survey. Both of those things were discussed last month. As a matter of fact, tonight's date was chosen so that you guys could meet before Town Day, which is in 2 days. You were talking about having a community survey. I assumed it would be looked over tonight by the council before it would be set out to the public and brought to Town Day. I thought it would be important for this council to review what was contained in the survey, and it's not on the agenda. Not understanding why public input wouldn't still be valuable, even though it is September 19th. As far as suggested that the Economic Council should put the funds into different topic-based buckets. I've heard that at a number of meetings, putting the funds and money in buckets before the end of the year, a public arts bucket or a cornerstone business bucket. I think there was a brewery bucket. It is not appropriate just to take hold of this ARPA money and hold on to it as if it's been appropriated. The previous speaker, and I've also written to you as well, I think this money should be sent back to the town council and to be reallocated. I've written to that point a number of times. I hope my emails are shared with the entire council so that this isn't new information or new public input for them to hear. There are some really talented people serving on this council. I really, truly thank each and every one of you for serving. I see one member of the state delegation there. All of our state delegation needs to help you and the town council. They must immediately reach out back to you and to the town council. They need to get onto the town council agenda, all three of them, to explain what all of you have done for surrounding communities. Our state delegation has done a ton of things for surrounding communities. Stoneham's looking better, Winchester's beautiful, Melrose looks fabulous. They know how to get things done as far as downtown betterments in regard to receiving sign and facade state grants. I'm not sure ARPA funds should be used for something the state should be doing for us. It did it for our neighbors. They should be doing it for us. Our state delegation has already done this. They know exactly what works and they know what doesn't, and they know how to get it done. I haven't seen them brought in front of the town council and asked. I hope that they reach out to us as constituents, that this step up to the plate.
Yeah, can you finish? We're hitting that 10-minute mark. Could you finish?
The beginning of what I said changed because of what the previous speaker said. So some of that information I didn't have, and neither does anybody.
Just finish your comments and we appreciate it.
I'm done. Mayor Dolan did a great job. Let's reach out to him. He can help. Our state delegation needs to step up to the plate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Actually, Madam Chair, it's If it pleases you, I can address a couple of those things because I do think it's important that people watching have an understanding relative to that. As far as the creation of Economic Development Council, I'll take the first point about the residency piece. We discussed this at length in formulating this council and also at our town council meeting itself, probably at least 2, if not 3 town council meetings. We were deliberate in identifying that this council should also include business interests in a meaningful way. And we that might mean that, for example, a business owner or a CEO who is operating in Wakefield may not be a Wakefield resident, but obviously has a significant interest in Wakefield. And we, as a town council, believe we would be able to draw from that individual's experience, perspective within town as a business owner or in business leadership, and connections that he or she may have. So that was a very deliberate determination that we made as a town council. The town council voted, I believe unanimously, with that structure in place. So that had been fully anticipated. And I remind anyone watching that the town council ultimately approved all of the appointees that are sitting here or a part of this council. And that was definitely something that was considered and actually sought after. So you're totally copacetic in that regard. As far as the monies that are being allocated, if we don't have those dollars spoken for by end of this year, which is something we've spoken about at length at every meeting, we'll lose them. And we also have concerns about clawback. Town Council Mullen, our town's attorney, has done a phenomenal job working with our town administrator to come up with, in essence, an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, that is at least allowing this council the opportunity to have additional time to be able to further designate those funds, but have them committed in a way that does not run afoul of ARPA rules, which has always been the intent. I think it's important to point out that this council, by the town council, has received very, very clear instructions in terms of your scope and purview. And as long as you are identifying, allocating dollars within that intended scope and purview, then you are not running afoul of anything that the town council has expected of you. We did have multiple conversations on this, I think, on at least 2 of our initial meetings about how we address the issue of reporting and approvals. And I did confirm also, with our town administrator that because these funds have already, and I raised this months ago, because they've already been allocated, they've already been voted upon by the town council. The town council is now bestowing this Economic Development Council with the authority to target where those dollars go. Again, within the clear parameters that we've established. And if we run outside those parameters, that's a problem. We actually create a bigger issue if any of these dollars go back to the town council for a further vote, because then they could be perceived as unallocated, in which case we could actually lose those dollars because we might get beyond the December 31st deadline. So it actually behooves the town and the preservation of these dollars to not follow in that way. So I think that the way that you're moving forward on that is appropriate and certainly within the confines. As Mr. Macaulay appropriately points out, this is a very different, ARPA funds are treated very differently from an accounting perspective than any other spending that's within the town. And Town Council Mullen opined on this and said just that. But that allows for the distribution of funds within the purview that's been directed, and nothing that I've seen overall that's actually been voted upon has in any way run afoul of that. There have been some discussions that I think we can talk about separately as to whether certain ideas may necessarily fall within that purview, but that's different, but nothing that's been voted upon. From a quorum perspective, as to allay any concerns, I've spoken with you, Madam Chair, about the idea of simply just revoting when you have quorum. Any votes, have them made by, I believe everyone is sworn in now. I don't think anyone would deliberately avoid that. I think they were not aware. But they are now, I believe everyone who's a member is sworn in with 1 vacancy. And so I believe that allows the opportunity to be able to just revote so that you have a very clean voting record there. I'd suggest that. The sign and facade stake grants that have been mentioned, with all due respect to places like Melrose and Stoneham, we have done a tremendous job through the Envision Wakefield Downtown Revitalization Project of securing many millions of dollars for a lot of this work that's being talked about. And that is in process. It's in upcoming fiscal years. And we've seen, Albion Street being one such example of that state funding. But we have aggressively pursued that in every front. So when we're talking about signs and facade, we're really talking about on structures that, for the most part, may not be subject to the same kind of grant opportunities, but we're certainly looking for them. So I think that's a really important to point out.
I was just going to add to the state earmarked $100,000, and we're also contributing that money to the facade and sign program
Right.
too. So they have given us funds for facade and sign. Be amiss if I didn't mention that.
But I think we have to be you as a committee have to be super sensitive to the clawback piece, and the MOUs were a workaround for that Town Council Mullen came up with, which I think is the appropriate way of handling it. And if this committee ends up deciding that there are funds that cannot be allocated for whatever reason, or you've got excess funds that you can't designate, of course, let me know immediately. I'll raise them with the Town Council. But at this point, I think that because we're parking certain dollars in buckets, doesn't mean that they're not being appropriately allocated. It just means that we may have, for instance, several rounds of facade and sign, applications. So we may not, and we don't want to frivolously spend money just to burn through it. We want to make sure that we're being deliberate in the way that we're approaching it. And so I think the MOU grants us that additional time, which I know was the biggest concern of this council from the beginning.
Thank you.
Sure.
A nice lead into our guest. I'm actually going to jump to item number 4 on the agenda. State delegation Representative Wong was gracious enough to come and spend some time with us. Is you allowed to come to the meeting?
Technically, you're supposed to go, but like the town council meeting when we have the table. Yeah. So you're right, front and center for all of us.
So thank you for your time, Representative Wong. Just to give you a little background on what we've done thus far. We've allocated some funds to as you've heard, the facade and sign program. The state has allocated $100,000, so we have leverage there, which is really great. We allocated funds towards digital marketing program for businesses within town so they can take advantage of that. We've allocated funds for a pop-up program. So any sort of business that maybe is not ready for brick and mortar or wants to try out Wakefield as a potential place, can come and participate in that. We went to $10,000 went to our speaker series.
Yes.
The chamber speaker series. Working with the chamber for a speaker series.
The Chamber of Commerce for speaker series. So we've actually been doing quite a bit of work and trying to really take the ARPA funds and move them into programs that we think are really going to benefit the town. One thing would be wonderful if we could hear from you some things that maybe we should be thinking about from a state perspective, and maybe some of the initiatives at the state level. I know the Healy administration is working hard to bring AI into the state, and I think alternative energy as well. So anything that you're hearing at the state level that we should be mindful of and that we can leverage.
I want to tell you some of the things that we have done in the past, even when Bob Rodo was state rep, great state rep, I worked with him, and if you look at the front of the lake where they had all the wires, we were the one that helped fix the wires over there. Every year we go to the administrator, Steve Mayo, and we sit down and ask, what do you need for the town that you might not have in the budget? Another thing that we've done was the house by the lake, the blue house. Yes, sorry. They needed a new roof and it's made of slate. So we funded that. to get the slate roof put on. This time we went and the bandstand, we got it renovated and made more safe. And that's all from the state money, from the grants. We had a hard time because when we went for the grants, it passed the House and Senate. But then when it went to the governor, she used her 9C cut and cut everything in half. So we had to play the game a little different. just like when we went for the library steps, we asked for 100,000. But then with the 9C cut, when she cut everything in half, and I saw that, I hurry up before the gate closed, asked for another 35,000 for public safety. So now Steve Mayo has the 50,000 and he can use the other 35 for public safety to fix the steps on the library. And that's really 2 grants to go into one. And I told him that if need be, you know, it's 85 now, if need be, we can try to do some fundraisers. I'll work with him on fundraisers. So there's a lot of things that we're looking to in the future too. And we sit down with Steve Mayo because he knows what the town can fund or what the town doesn't fund. Any questions?
That's great. Thank you for all your hard work.
If I could just add one thing, I think Representative Wong is being a bit modest in some of this too. We also have funding relative to the Albion Cultural Exchange, which is really significant because I know that's a significant economic corridor that Representative Wong was very influential in helping to secure. And there's also even restroom facilities by the lake that are going to be built. That was, again, it partially funded through that. And that is an economic driver as well, because the lake is such a centerpiece and such a draw to so many visitors that having those sort of amenities along the lake, you know, it's more likely to bring more folks here, and also we can leverage that as well. So those are really important things. I don't think I've been at a Chamber of Commerce breakfast meeting where Representative Wong hasn't been present, or if he has, it's been very far and few. He's always there speaking with our business community, our small business community, which I think is incredibly important.
That's another thing, is we brought money to the chamber to help the small businesses.
So the other day, I drove down to Audubon Road over in that area. And I gotta tell you, I was so impressed with how it looks and what's over there. And just wanted to share with you, because I chatted with Representative Kate, Library Gallery, and reminded her of that space over there, that if there's conversations at the state level for maybe a larger, maybe cornerstone industry, that we actually have availability in space to maybe be considered for maybe a larger business as well.
Another thing I forgot was on Water Street, that bridge, it was falling down, and the state will only do certain size bridges. It was a small bridge, they say it's the town. It was a bigger bridge. So we did bring money, even though it was a smaller bridge, to make it safer and wouldn't shake the foundation of the houses as it went by.
That's great, wonderful. I'm gonna check with Rocco. Do you have any comments or questions for Representative Wong?
I do not. I respect the work that you do, Representative Wong. I met you on more than one occasion, and you know, like I said, I admire what you do, and I, representing anyone, safely say that you know, you're an asset to all of us, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll just note too, from my offices, you know, anytime I've gone to you guys, the state delegation, for letter of support, you guys are within minutes. Yes, we'll, sign it. I think you guys have a lot of faith in the work that we do here at the town. For example, we got a $50,000 grant. I was just looking at the date back in 2022 for the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism. And it was really built on how the lake draws people here as a kind of tourist type place. And we did a shop local campaign with videos and whatnot to try to draw people to our small businesses and to our community. And I just want to say thank you for that support and other letters of support that you've definitely provided us in the past. But yeah.
And we plan on continue doing it, and Wakefield is such a great town to work with. Especially Steve Mayo, every time you go in, what do you want? He has a list for us. But it's great.
Yeah.
And the people are great here. Thank you.
Ali, do you have any?
No comments, sir.
I just thank your presence. I mean, I know you are at numerous functions regularly and opening yourself up to communication from people in the public at all the places that you appear. It's really welcome and appreciated.
Again, thank you.
Jane, ditto to everything. And thank you again for coming tonight. I know you're super busy and we appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule to come.
But we represent you. That's why we're here.
I think the representative too might have some sort of a small business on Route 1, I think. If I'm not mistaken there. So he has some familiarity with what it's like to be in business and have a business, yes.
I was wondering if you had any updates about economic development bill or anything like that.
We're looking at them now, and I'm working with Steve Mayo to
Mhm.
see what we can include in that.
Okay. Great. I think that's important for this
Yes.
group here. So any updates in the future would be much appreciated from my office.
Yeah, and anything we can do to help, I know it's come up a few times, so anything we can do to help you move it forward.
Thank you. It's a pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
So moving to number 5, just overall economic development, ARPA funds discussion. We're still not at quorum, so we'll be voting on anything, but wanted to just maybe continue the discussion on some of the items that have come up previously. First one, A, town. So just to explain to folks, sometimes I'll alter, it'll be a continuation of the conversations that we've had, and sometimes I just will alter the title to try to make it fit more in sort of what we specifically have been talking about. So for this one, this is kind of the marketing discussion we've had, but really specific to the town and business marketing, where we really look at Wakefield, and how come Wakefield as a municipality market itself better? Because we have to compete, right? We have to compete with all these other municipalities to get business in.
And I think, you mentioned Audubon Road earlier, and, I think we should spend some municipal marketing money to bring some businesses in there. And I think that's part of our outreach. And I think that is money well spent, municipal marketing, because that area is fabulous accessibility and developability. It's just, it's a site that we should open up to other industries. It's people get lost in kind of downtown Wakefield, but the expanse of what's available in that area is extraordinary. And that is something we should market to larger industries. And I think that's money we should spend to create a draw industries to be aware of that location.
Please, Representative.
Are you looking to bring more industry into Wakefield?
That's something that we've talked about as a council. I'll let Councilor Dabrowski tell you about the town council, but it seems like no fault of anyone, but just by circumstance that we've lost sort of cornerstone industry, job creating industry. And if that's something that we can help drive back into Wakefield, I think that would be amazing. You wanna?
I would just say also, the ever-growing concern is the commercial tax base and being able to make sure that we have an expanded commercial tax base and also a thriving commercial tax base, because that also takes the burden off the residential taxpayer as well, which is so it's a win-win.
Like Saugus had Route 1.
Tremendous.
Commercial, yes.
Yes.
It's a lot more. Because what I was wondering is last year I brought the ambassador of Taiwan in Washington DC up to the State House and introduced her to the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, and the Governor. And then she went back in November. Now she's Vice President of the country.
Oh, wow.
I still have her cell number. And I talked to her a couple of times and I said, she asked me, how can I help you? And because I said, the Commonwealth, we grow cranberries here. I sent her all the science about it, how it's supposed to help your urinary tract and everything else. Taiwan now is buying a lot of cranberries from Plymouth.
Wow.
And another thing I'm talking to her about is because Taiwan keeps getting threatened by China that they'll come over and take it over. I asked them if they have any manufacturers that would like to come to the Commonwealth. And the reason why I picked the Commonwealth, and she said, why not the West Coast? I said, well, California isn't like the East Coast. Plus, you would be selling to the same people, the Pacific. We have more hospitals and universities here than any other town city. And we have an international airport and we have a harbor. And not only that is when you have your product stamped, made in the USA, you're the gateway to Europe. And that would be good for them. So now I'm talking to them and hopefully she'll give me a list of manufacturers that might come. And what I'm asking them is, let me know how much land you need. So then I can go to towns and cities, but mainly Wakefield, and see if we give them the first choice or something like
Yeah,
that.
that'd be amazing. That'd be amazing. Have you been down to Audubon Road and to, water?
I saw a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
But I didn't know,
It's
And the-
beautiful down there.
yes,
Yeah.
I didn't know how much the town want for industry and residents. But I'll sit down with you as soon as I get some more information from Taiwan. I'll give you the numbers and
Yeah,
That's great. It's wonderful. Thank you.
And that really ties into, Chris, what you were saying about marketing the
Outreach.
town to showcase what Wakefield has to offer.
Is that, appropriate for funding to help market us to outreach like that?
Can I ask a question about that?
Absolutely.
Would any of those Taiwan companies happen to be tech oriented or specifically tech?
some of them,
Some of them
yes,
are?
yes.
Good.
You have any?
I just know that there's a lot of cutting edge technology coming out of Taiwan,
Yes.
so I got excited about the prospect of
Yes.
some of those people.
And, even the US doesn't want China to take over Taiwan and all that technology.
Yeah.
They make, I think, 85% of the computer chips
Yes.
in the world.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I know, again, that the Healy administration, she has several times talked about wanting to make Massachusetts the AI hub. I would think Wakefield would want to be part of that.
I think next year she's gonna have a trip to Asia.
She taking you?
I don't wanna go. What I wanna do is I wanna give her the names of people in different countries that she should be talking to.
Excellent, thank you. I'm glad you came. I'm glad we're having this
I was just gonna say,
discussion.
it's always fabulous having you in our presence.
Um, Any other comments on town and business? Rocco?
Nope,
Nothing to add?
thank you.
Moving on to item B. So again, I'm trying to get the words so that we can really be talking about something that I think folks, just in general, be like, oh, I understand it's doing things that are very much within the sense of the community, maybe leveraging some statues that we're like we're such a patriotic community, and making sure that when we're talking about any sort of public art, we're leveraging our commitment to our country, our commitment to our community, and that very much is part of our discussion on public art, that looking at who we are and not losing that thread. So the second item is public art and events, community events. And part of, I know your title is economic development and community, and I think that's also within our charter, is to also look at the community, try to bring community together. I don't know how many people participated or went to Porch Fest these last, it was 2 weeks ago?
Mhm.
Amazing, amazing. And that was just a group of folks who got together and said, we really should, it'd be great to have Porch Fest. Over 100 acts, I think over 50 locations. If you did a little, back of the envelope math, let's say there were 20 people per location, that's 1,000. I think there was way more. Where that's something that's really bringing folks into our community, a wonderful event. Everyone has raved about the music and how everyone really came together. So something like that, which would really bring folks into our downtown, into Greenwood, into, I just call it Doblier, because I don't know that they actually have four corners. Really starting to see how amazing Wakefield really is.
Community events get people out and into areas of town that they might not frequent. And I think, us, promoting some more community events is good for the economic development of Wakefield. Again, because it sometimes draws people from out of town to places that they wouldn't go to. And again, it gets people out of their house and it gets people out and into your restaurants and into your businesses. And oftentimes it has them find an appreciation for what is around them that they might not have noticed had they not been out at an event. I think that's something that falls under our charter.
Sorry. Do you have any?
No, I was just nodding along.
Oh, okay.
Just two things I want to mention. One is that there had been in recent years prior, a real discussion about trying to make that stretch of Albion between Main and North Ave really as kind of like an arts and cultural corridor. We have the Albion Cultural Exchange there. We, as one anchor, we have Kid Casso, which has just expanded in recent years. And so the idea of ways in which we can incentivize that, there have been like some schematic drawings of ways in which we can have, bistro lights over parts of the street and the like. So I would encourage this council to just really think about that. Even the banners that we have on Albion Street, really, I work with Jim McDonald on this, and we've talked about how to make them reflect the kind of like the arts and cultural aspects. So each element of that banner, it's like the typeset from the item, and there's like, everything has like an element to it. We used to have more of a music presence there too, but even Hobby Lobby, which has models and gaming and all that, that's another aspect of it. So thinking about like ballet studios and dance and musical performance, all of that. So I think the more this council could think about how to re-engage those discussions about that being kind of an arts and cultural corridor would be really attractive to a lot of businesses, because we have kind of a pocket there, if you will. On the arts piece, something else I wanted to just raise is I have been receiving since the last meeting a lot of comments from the public relative to some discussion that had been had relative to murals. And I mentioned this to you in passing. Murals have been something that have been raised in years past at the town council level that I would say arguably received a bit of a lukewarm reception. A lot of folks that the people who have reached out to me have expressed discontent with the idea of moving forward with murals. So I make you aware of that, so everyone is aware of it. And I think that's been a bit of a thorny issue. So I would just encourage this council to think about other ways in which you could perhaps have art. Sometimes there are some communities that have painted pianos for a period of time that draw people to check out the different Saratoga Springs, New York has painted horses that are all different, and then they're up for like a month's time, but they become a draw, you know, just like the ice caves, like in New Hampshire, you know, it's just something like that. So I would just encourage this council to, you know, maybe think about other ways in which you could have, even temporary art installations rather than, you know, focus on the mural piece. I just know that you're gonna get pushback on that.
So to that point, because we did talk about that last meeting, and Ali mentioned, which I loved, he said, you know, the eagles are all over the place, that we could do temporary, because we did talk about temporary art installations and doing something exactly what you're talking about. Like maybe it's the birds of Wakefield or something. And that's again, where I'm trying to word it so it's not people thinking the only thing we're talking about is murals. What we're really talking about is music, like creative. It's music. There's a quilting. The quilts are down here. Writing, anything is really considered creative, artistic, and that can be a private public art collaboration. So just so you understand, we did absolutely have that whole conversation, and it's great to hear that you're asking us to go in that direction.
And Grillos too, I mean, like, you know, the balsam, like, for like airplanes are here, right?
Mhm.
I mean, who didn't know one of those kind of growing up? So the idea, you know, that was actually something that was talked about, even trying to incorporate, it's kind of like a model of them into like, you know, an art installation down Albion again, but you know, when you're mentioning eagles or birds, or maybe it's airplanes, you know, like we can think about, you know, that and Wicker are obviously two industries that have really been hallmarks of Wakefield's history, but just being able to think about that, I think would be helpful.
Yes, and that's how we're trying, just so anyone who's listening can hear. That's what we're trying to do, is really make sure that we're respecting the history here, because there is so much history here. I went and looked at the Civil War monument that's being done, and the sign that's out there, the person who designed it, first thing, artist, and, right, so that's a piece of art. The statue down here that's in bronze is drop dead gorgeous, like just amazing, the amount of detail on that, and that's a work of art. So hopefully folks can understand that what we're trying to do here is really trying to leverage what's here and add to it, add value to it.
Public art can also bring events, and it's cycling back to what, you know, I said about getting people out in town. And your town theme, you know, between, you know, Birds of Flight and all the Eagle stuff, and our, you know, historic art, you know, right behind us. Public art can breed events, and again, get more people out and get more people into our businesses and into the community and experience how fabulous we are.
Rocco, any comments?
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with that. I remember when I worked in Arlington, all of the storefronts, they had the kids from the high school come by and draw kind of freehand and do some artwork on the windows. And folks from the town would come around and vote for what they thought was the best one. And it speaks to the community, the whole community aspect of that. And I think art is very much an important part of any community. It gives it flavor, gives it character. So I agree with that.
Holly, do you want to add anything? Or?
I'm curious, are the comments that are suggesting that maybe it's not the best use of time, are the comments suggesting that it's not the best use of money? Or is it mainly that people might not agree on the aesthetic that the committee ends up choosing? Because those are two different sort of reasons why people would oppose it. I'm just wonder.
From what the feedback I've gotten, it's threefold. It's the aesthetic, it's the allocation of ARPA funds for it, and the third piece was the suggestion that we would go out, or the council would go outside of Wakefield for the artist. Those are the three main themes I would say. But I've gotten I've had several people reach out on it in the last 4 weeks or 5 weeks. Whenever it was on that. So.
And just to share, I've actually had the complete opposite experience. So folks have actually been saying, And maybe it's because I'm downtown as I'm talking to folks. And it's more of a, it would like, what if potentially some of this business owner would opt in to do public art on the side of their buildings, is how I word it. And I get people are very excited because what I do is I just turn to the statue, and I said, all this would be, if you think about incorporating all this, you're incorporating the duck from Lake Quannapowitt, you're incorporating the bee from BB Library. So you're really incorporating maybe the Blue House, right? You're really incorporating what Wakefield really is, so that it's the concern over the aesthetic kind of goes away. And I've had folks be like, that would be amazing, just so that you also, and I could ask them maybe to reach out to you.
Sure.
So you can.
Yeah.
Item number 5C is potential business attraction and funding ideas. So we've talked about this, like how do we, this I think is that, how do we attract businesses, and what you've offered, Representative Wong, is great. So, having part of it was having the representatives come in, but also other things, because we still do have quite a bit of funds. And then how do we allocate that to keeping folks and bringing new businesses in? And I think this is usually where Will starts talking about breweries, is usually at this point. I went to the Medford, has anyone else gone to the Medford tap room? It's amazing. It's, have you been?
I drove by last night,
Yeah.
actually, and saw it up with the big screen.
Yeah, it's open, and there's outdoor spaces, indoor space, there's just a bar and just tables. And everyone who was in there was having an absolutely amazing time. It was a great, low, I'm thinking probably low cost to set it up. And really great.
I'd love to chime in here.
Yeah.
So I think something we've talked about with kind of always gearing towards breweries, and I'd like to bring it back to just businesses in general, whether that be small, large, medium. I think something that I've heard, and I brought it up last time, and it kind of got tied into the facade and sign program, is allocating funds for businesses to make interior improvements, whether that be they're looking to expand their space, and so need money for, adding a new bathroom because now their space is bigger, or new AC units, or, things that you would think sometimes the property owner covers and they don't. I'm thinking more from like a retainment type process, new flooring, trying to help them. Again, it would be matching. I think there should always be buy-in. But I think that's a nice tool to have when you're looking to attract a business too, saying that, we have the seed funding to help you get in the door to make the improvements for new windows, historic windows, which we all know can be very expensive. And we have historic buildings in our town. And I think still rent is really high, as I think we all know, for commercial as well. And I think, you're trying to get these new businesses in here. And this is just what I've heard, that some of the space is just like a house, they want a certain amount of money, but it needs this much work. And I just can't make it work financially. That's one of the biggest things I've heard from businesses. So if we're able to be like, well, what if the town was able to support you with some seed funding to help with your build out of your space? I think that gives us a one-up. And it was kind of going back to when we talked about Mike Berlin, but this would be more of a grant fund. So I think that's a tool with attraction and retention here for any size business, I guess.
To your point, and just to pick up a couple pieces, I think we've lost businesses because some of their interior stuff they could not afford. And had there been some of our money, ARPA money, available to say, hey, we'd love to have you stay. We can help you, make your space viable. And the handicap accessibility thing sometimes keeps businesses that are viable from expanding. I would love to grab this space next door and maybe a little more space, but I can't afford to have 2 full-size handicap bathrooms that are going to be required, or the right handicap access for me to help grow this. And if there's a way to help a business expand or help a business stay here and not look at another community, I think that's money well spent.
Rocco, you leaning in?
I agree, Chris. Absolutely. It's a no-brainer, in my opinion.
So can I?
Everybody should have the ability to access everywhere in this day and age. In 2024, there should never be any limitations to anybody with any kind of physical handicap. So,
Yeah, and I
if we
think
can
our,
help, and if we can help to that end, then we should.
and
Can I ask one question?
yeah,
So how does, do the businesses go to the landlord for, how does that work out? So does the business go to the landlord first and say, I need X, Y, and Z, or do they just, they have to handle it all themselves? How does that work? Because it's a physical, if they're renting and they don't own the building. How does?
yeah, I mean, if any, so ADA bathrooms, right, that's benefiting long-term that space, ultimately the property owner, but it's helping the business at the time, that's looking to get there. But I think to your point, like, how does that process start, or like, what is that?
Do they, so the property owner would have to agree?
I would imagine just like the facade and sign program, kind of how we have that sign off for, even though the renters are applying to make a new sign for themselves, they still need the sign off from the property owner because it's technically still their building. And so I think with the facade and sign, we do allow the money to be used for ADA. And I haven't seen that yet. And I think there's some buildings. Oh, go ahead.
What they can do is go to landlord and say, you don't have a handicap bathroom or entrance. We're willing to do it if you take off so much from our rent. So that we can put it in. Or we can talk to the local banks and say, are you willing to give a low interest loan for them to put the handicap in?
A lot of property owners, though, put the fit out on the tenant,
Mhm.
and they're usually amenable to letting you fit out a space, but not interested in helping you fit out a space. So, my point was there are places that would like to expand or would like to be more in compliance and have a viable business in place, but a landlord does not want to help them grow.
Mhm. I've run into that problem many times in tracting businesses, unfortunately.
So I think we're in a position to facilitate successful businesses and business retention with some of this money.
And attraction.
Well, we talked about, Donald's attraction, and I certainly think there is money we should spend to market Wakefield in different avenues. And specifically business marketing. Sorry.
So I guess my question is that, so the landlord wouldn't, so let's say you have a business that's like, oh, I totally want to do this. And the landlord's like thinking otherwise, the landlord can then say, we're not doing this. Is that, and you've seen that,
Oh, yeah.
Counselor?
I would just really encourage this council to be mindful of the fact that with these ARPA funds, I know we've spoken a lot about sign and facade work, but there is an inherent public benefit to sign and facade work because it improves the aesthetic of the community for everyone to see. And when you drive down even Middle Main right now, I don't think Middle Main is a representation of where we are as a community or what we could be as a community. Dilapidated, building facades, signage that's temporary or just non-existent. And so I'm not in any way trying to dissuade you from thinking about this, but there is a public good or benefit that comes from what's outwardly facing too, just because everyone sees it. And I think, it's, the whole like broken window, theory. And the more we can do that and, and encourage better looking facades, I think that's going to have a positive domino effect.
I like Aaron's point of the historic elements, that if there are historic elements which are very expensive, that, so it could be that, and the ADA stuff, to me, seems to make sense and maybe fits in with this. But I think that's a great point, that if there's historic elements, maybe that's something we could, like, maybe keep some parameters around it.
And the Charlie's on Main, I think, is a perfect example of that.
Mm.
Charlie's on Main was a building that just became like stripped of any and all character. Unfortunately, had a fire, but now they have real opportunity because they're peeling back all the layers.
Mhm.
And you think about how can that be reimagined in a way that is more in keeping with, you know, a historic nature, but then is an appealing and attractive place. I think this council has a role in something like that in being able to try to incentivize, which, you know, falls, you know, within Aaron's office, to think about how do we incentivize that building by making smart design choices. I know that the senior planner, for instance, had talked about the way, thinking about how to do banding. I'm not convinced that every business is not interested in doing it. I do think a lot of businesses frankly don't really know how to do it. Or, and even when we see developers come in and they do and they might take a house and turn it into 3 condos or something like that. A lot of the design choices you look at, you're like, why did you do that? But I think that with the businesses, Aaron, through your work, you're also able to think about, all right, can we perhaps, you know, have some architects on retainer that can come in and offer that kind of like design assistance, which comparatively is very small money, but you drive a benefit. It's good for the property owner because they have a more appealing, you know, physical space. It's better for the business and it's more attractive to the community as a whole. So I think there's a real value add to that, you know, for small dollars. So thinking about ways in which we can integrate, we've talked a lot about marketing, how to teach businesses some of the best marketing strategies. Let's talk about, okay, from a design perspective, these are ways in which you can think about that.
So talking about business attraction and retention, the kiosks. So part of what I was thinking is having the kiosks. Do you want to chat a little bit about the?
Sure. So Jen McDonald and I, the communications director here in the town, met with a company called SUFA. We actually met with them about a year ago, and then met with them about 2 weeks ago. They create digital marketing kiosks for commercial business districts. Luckily, we had a meeting with them a year ago, and then the week later I went down to Florida and was able to see them in person. And so they're live digital kiosks where you could share information, everything. They have different widgets, everything from town news to upcoming meetings, directories of where certain businesses are. And so we were talking to them and they were just giving us kind of the rundown of all the offerings they have. I know they've popped up in different communities, and I don't want to misspeak what communities they are, but, you know, I think they may be in Brookline, they may be in Boston, they said as well. I'm happy to pull that up and show you what they kind of look like initially. It's probably a bigger conversation for more council members, but it might be a way as we're trying to, you know, talking about community events, how we do, you know, but not better job, Jen does a great job, but, you know, how do we able to put more community events on these digital boards and change them, or also talking about transportation too. You're able to put a widget on there of like when the next bus is coming or the commuter rail if you had it by the kiosk. So there's a lot of different things you can do with it. It's not, you know, stagnant with the boards that we have now. A lot can be used for it. So, and then you can design the kiosks to have your marketing on the actual kiosk. So staying true to kind of what we've been doing with our logo and the colors that we've used for kind of our marketing scheme here in town. So happy to share what they look like if now, or I can show them at another meeting.
So I just wanted to do a time check. So we've been at it for about an hour. Our folks, another few minutes in us? Yeah? Rocco, yes?
Fine, yeah.
Do you want to?
Just takes me a second. Again, it's just an initial conversation. Oh, I have to join the Zoom meeting. Bear with me, sorry.
I'll just add on to that, Faneuil Hall has some, obviously, incredibly historic place that has had its history preserved, has something similar, and they've done it in a very tasteful way that it's well integrated, but there's a lot of information that will flow through. And it doesn't feel like it's bright in your face, which I know is part of the concern too, just the aesthetics of this.
I also think that, like the maps, you know, even being able to say, so for instance, where is the Albion Cultural Exchange? Oh,
Sure.
like, no, it's Albion Street, you would help, but, would be able to point folks in directions to businesses.
Absolutely.
Sorry, it's more of a process in it.
It's some nice signage below the street name pointing.
Oh,
We've talked about the idea of wayfinding, you know, to your
Yes.
point, Representative Wong, that is important. That again is oftentimes a really good state collaboration with wayfinding too, so we can think about. A lot of communities have done it well. We brought in how we ended up with our current a town aesthetic with a logo and letterhead and fonts was through a wayfinding committee basically that came up with ideas, working with what's called Faberman and Associates, and they did work for like the Olympics. I mean, they're very well known internationally, and that whole idea. There's a whole complement of
what's that name? I'm sorry.
it's Faberman and Associates.
Saberman?
But they came up with a whole kind of design aesthetic, if you will, that you could use for directing folks, you know, to parking, which is always a big one, or to points of interest. Those are all important. And we're talking about the oldest house, you know, in public house in Wakefield, in a Hartshorn house. There are ways that we can do that, and especially wayfinding from the lake, but not on the lake, but you know, to the downtown to also. So I think there's probably a lot we've done there that this council could build upon, and I could work with Mr. Mayo and making sure we get that, you know, to this council.
I think this is actually Faneuil Hall. You're just talking about it, right? Saw it in Faneuil Hall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
So-
kind of right.
So this is just an example of one of a kiosks. But just wanted to call it out since we just said Faneuil Hall. Let me go to the top again. This is kind of what they look like. Again, they wrap them with your mark kind of Wakefield. And they have like 4 different widgets that can change in and out. And I think going to so there was a lot of work that was done many years ago where we could, you know, tie in some of the colors and stuff like that. But yeah, this is kind of what they look like. Gave us a presentation. As you see here, neighborhood news. It's solar powered as well.
great.
They come and clean them every 2 weeks. It's part of the contract that you have with them. Here you can see the bus line, too, know when it's coming. Here too, if you can zoom in a little bit, you can see kind of upcoming town council, you know, it says city council meeting, planning commission. Another way for us to share information. And then also, you know, there's a map, wayfinding, you can, which it makes it a lot easier. I think that's always been my reservations with putting a new map in our current kiosk because businesses unfortunately change over. And so then you're spending that money to put up a new map, which is actually very expensive, and then it's outdated. So by doing this, you're able to update it in real time, which we'd be able to do in the back of the house. So yeah, I can go, you know, if you guys are interested, the gentleman that presented it to us is more than happy to come back to one of our meetings. I do have they gave us quotes of what they are. Also happy to reach out to other communities and kind of see what they're, you know, how they're feeling about them prior to the meeting as well. This is Framingham. You can do an advertising component. I think Jen and I, again, we're just 2 internal people talking, felt that it would be better without the advertising. And so you don't need to do it. So yeah.
Can you quickly the ballpark?
So yes, one sign is $18,000. That's an upfront price per unit. The initial fee is $4,000. So an annual cost per unit for the 3 years after that would be $4,000 a unit. So it'd be $26,000 for a 3-year contract for one. So I didn't realize it printed out the whole agreement here. And then we asked for 3, I believe was the next one. Gosh, I apologize. Yeah, 3. So the upfront per unit would be $18,000. The initial fee would be $54,000, and that'd be $3,000 a unit per year after that. So $9,000 total annual cost after the first year would be $9,000 for the maintenance and service fees. So for the total cost for 3 years would be $72,000. And then we got 6 signs. We were talking about like putting one by the commuter rail down in Greenwood. The price per unit goes down again to $17,000. The total cost for a 3-year contract for 6 is $138,000. So those are just the 3 that we threw out. What? Yeah, so you could have advertising where you could have local businesses sponsor. I think Jen and I thought it kind of were, then that's just 2 people internally would rather not have sponsors. But we do have to think about if we have these, how we maintain them long-term financially. So that would be a deeper conversation I think we'd have to have on how that would work.
So if, like, say you have it for 3 years, say it's covered, and then the funds to move forward aren't there, do they come and they take them out?
Yes. Yep. But I'm hoping through other opportunities, and again, I don't know what those are at the current time, we could make something work.
They suggest locations or not on us?
I think ultimately it would be on us to decide where we want them. I'm sure they'd work with us based on what they've seen in the past where, you know, it's worked, where it hasn't worked. But yeah, I think it would ultimately be our decision. The town's decision. And like I said, they come every 2 weeks to clean them. So there's a good maintenance plan as well.
Any other comments, Rocco?
The price is kind of a sticker shock for me a little bit. I wonder if advertising would be more than just for the contribution towards the expense of it, but also maybe advertising could help some of the local businesses as a result of that. Also, I wonder how you would measure cost effectiveness of something like that. I mean, just having advertisement, I mean, just having information out there, it's good. It's all very well and good, but what's the goal? What's the motivation?
So something else they did mention is they do track. I don't want to, it's like, but you know, people walking, they don't collect data or anything like that. So you get an idea of how many people are walking in your downtown.
Right.
Get ideas of when it's busy, foot traffic busy, certain times. You could get an idea if you have an event downtown, how many people came in, things like that.
So one thing I would think of, Rocco, is there's oftentimes, if you're in a town that you don't know very well, you're like, gee, I really would love a hamburger, where can I go? It would be, if you don't know, you might hop in your car and go to a, you know, not a nice local place. But if you can just look and say, oh, this is 3 places here I could go to, these sound good. That's one way to kind of think about, you know, it's all good to have information, but what good is it? If you're actually,
Right.
I think a lot of times we think local, like, you know where to go, you know everywhere to go. Like, I don't even know what's called over by Dolbear, right? So folks who are coming in, it's helpful to have new consumers come in and sort of understand where they can go and what they can get.
I think also thinking about advertising in different forms. I mean, there's advertising where, you know, T-Mobile is advertising, and there's advertising where
Right.
Public Kitchen is showing that, from 5 to 7, they have half price appetizers.
Mhm.
Because that's kind of the point of highlighting,
Mhm.
the businesses, and that might be an opportunity where there could be some underwriting of some costs that way. And to Representative's point too, maybe there is some sponsorship. Chamber of Commerce comes to mind, or other organizations potentially, or maybe some of the larger events, especially around the lake. There's a small fee to be having advertising. If you have like a big walk, for instance, they pay a couple $100, for the opportunity. They'd more than make that back many times over,
Right.
but they're probably wasted to fray the costs. But I wouldn't be spooked by what, the idea of advertising. I think it's what is being conveyed.
Yeah, and I think we were just thinking generic advertising. I mean, I'm even thinking like, you hear sometimes from the larger businesses wanting to give back to the community and what that may look like. Is that not advertising opportunity? So yeah, I think there's definitely different things.
So that would allay some of Rocco's concern about the ongoing costs, which I'm sure a lot of people share. Okay, we have these in place, they're working well. How do we fund them going forward if they can become more self-supporting?
Right.
Be a win-win.
And I do like the idea of sponsorship. Some of the local business or some even bigger, larger scale outfits that would mind a little not advertising so much as even sponsorship or something like that would defray the costs.
And we have them on banners. I recall we had Main Streets that, wanted to make sure they had their logo on things, for instance. So it's not unprecedented for us to do something like that, but in a tasteful way where it's more of a sponsorship than a blatant ad.
So Erin, the advertising and sponsorship, it would be rolling on the screen?
Some of them, I believe it's actually on the
Physical.
but that can easily be changed to the wrap. I guess it's wrapped. I don't recall ever seeing it on like the screen itself. Yeah.
I like it.
And if they have a directory, right, and they might have food directory, clothing, and if they want more than just the directory, if you hit that name, the menu will come out. Yes, sure. Things like that.
Stealing all your ideas.
Oh, sorry.
Is it interactive at all? Like, sometimes you go to a mall and,
Yeah, you can
by
click
the
on it.
escalator, you can press a button and you can find out where the Macy's is or whatever. Do they have that?
I don't recall. I'd have to go back and look. I want to say no, but I'll go back and ask them.
Right, and so if we could figure out if we have the bulk of the council next time, perhaps the representative can come in and, not representative one, but the representative of two can come in.
Or if they're not interactive, then also other companies too.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, I guess it's more gauging the interest of the concept. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's 7:20. Do you want to do a quick,
I'll be super quick.
what's okay still?
Facade and sign is moving along nicely. We extended the deadline after our last meeting. I extended it to the September 27th. That wasn't a date that was decided here. I just decided to give till the end of the month, which is a Friday. So far, we have about 8 applications. I don't think that's gone up too much since last time, but I've still had ongoing conversations. And when I did talk to people, they're like, thank you for the extra time. I need it. So far, the grants, if we did give it to everyone that's asked, it would be around $115,000. And some are very large. The average is about $14,000 is the average request amount. So the impact would actually be $231,000 to improvements. I want to say most, not most, maybe half are downtown properties, and I know a few more are coming in that are hoping to do big improvements to their buildings. And so I'm actually working, I've had phone calls with a few people. So I guess we'll have to revisit that next meeting and talk about the big projects, I know anything larger, we didn't set an amount, but I think I'd feel comfortable myself in terms of anything over 15, just letting you guys know what they're looking to do, or 20, to give them the okay. But once I get them in the applications, I'm going to be meeting with the building department to make sure they're abiding anything, the facade and sign program, or a facade, oh my gosh, the overlay, the sign, I need to go home. The sign overlay district, making sure that they're in compliance with all that, and if not, the correct route for them to go down. Or if they're not in the overlay districts, the sign, we want to make sure they're all in compliance. They will not be getting any town money unless they send me all the correct permits and that the sign off from the building department. So I will be working on that once town days this weekend. After that, in October, that will be a big undertaking that we'll be doing. So
So we don't ever want to be a roadblock or anything.
Okay.
If you feel like you want to come back with something, but if it's in the way of you moving forward, please.
Okay.
Agreed?
I feel very comfortable with the projects I've seen so far. I think there's a few that will make an impact based on kind of what Ed was saying too.
And just so people realize too that may be watching, I mean, these are not done in a vacuum. I mean, you have the building inspector, I know you've actually met.
Oh, yeah.
You've spent time with the building inspector going through these. Our town administrators tuned into this as well, what's going on. So there's layers here of.
It's a robust process.
And everything obviously goes through accounting in addition to that.
Yeah,
We
so
have- there's a lot of.
Yeah, I mean, they are not getting the money. It's reimbursable. All the money goes through our accounting. They have to be a vendor with the town, W-9. It's not, we're just handing out money. The building department has to sign off before and the improvements have to be done. And they have to stay true to what they submitted to their application or they're not funded. So yes, there is a very thorough process.
So anyone watching should understand that this is not
Like-
haphazardly done. There's a lot of layers.
Yeah,
to this.
yep.
And receipts, invoices are given, and then it's
Yeah, I have to see all the invoices that the contractors were paid and that the work
It's a
reimbursement, the work is true to what their application said. So digital marketing, we have the 4 consultants. We're hoping to start that in the middle of October, 3rd week of October. When I mean starting that, I mean starting the webinar series. And from there, right now with the contract, the consultants, it's about $10,000 of the $60,000 budget. The rest of the money will go towards businesses. Again, they will need to attend 3 out of the 4 webinars. If they attend, and we'll have it on Zoom and hybrid, we make sure that they attend them all. They have to submit a digital marketing plan of how they plan to spend the money. They can use some of the money for a consultant, or they can just do it themselves. But we work with them and we only reimburse them again based on they're staying true to what they're using the money for. And so that's the plan for that. So that's moving forward. And the pop-up, I don't really have anything. The 2 spaces I was hoping to go to. Good news are leased. So I have a meeting with Project Pop-Up on Monday. That's something that, yeah.
Questions? Rocco? Questions?
Nope.
Ali?
No.
Is that more? So on the.
I would just encourage the council to think about with these MOUs that are going to be signed off on, thinking about, again, an architect on a go forward basis that's available to anyone, and also allocating funds to assigned company or companies within town, so that as businesses continue to see the first round and second round, maybe as we get to 2025, we've allocated funds. So they're basically on retainer, if you will, obviously meeting all the same standards, Aaron, that you talked about, of course, but maybe something to think about if you have an architect on retainer, if you have an assigned, company or companies, probably makes sense on retainer, things like that. And perhaps even some sort of a business consultant also on retainer for those purposes, because I think that, the amount of money you want to allocate to that is obviously in your discretion, but you may want to just think about having that on a go forward basis, because I think you would find some benefit to that beyond the end of this year.
Yeah, and I think, the money we allocated is much more than what I just said. Still have like a little less than 400 because of the 100,000 too from the state. So after this application period's closed, I think we have to talk about this rolling basis of, you know, how we allocate that money. I think it'll be a great program and once people see success too.
By the time you guys get to the third round, I think you're gonna find that people are gonna, it's really gonna pick up a lot of steam. I think
Yeah.
when people start seeing, you know, it's that notion of like shovel-ready projects. These are very like shovel-ready. If we can get, you know, new signs, new work underway, and then, hey, by the way, you know, Aaron, I think having signage saying this is a, you know, big collaboration with the town of Wakefield. I think that's important for people to see. And like, I've spoken to a number of businesses to try to promote, you know, the work you're doing. And it's being very well received. And I've heard businesses saying, well, other communities I know aren't doing this. So you, as a council, have a real niche here to be able to really, you know, stand out from the rest. And I think that reinforcement for our current businesses is huge. And obviously it's a draw for future.
Yeah.
Do you do a WCA TV show or anything?
No, I do not.
Do you folks do a
The town council doesn't, a town administrator will do a town administrator's report.
report, but not a? It'd be kind of cool to have, just even on, maybe we do one. I bet you look really good on TV.
Yeah. I know I shared them, the flyers and stuff. I can't recall if I saw them on their website. I sent them a few different flyers of the programs we were rolling out at the beginning.
But it'd be great to have, like, that we can just go and, if we actually even have one of the businesses that was taking advantage of this, come along and say, I've taken advantage of this, this is a great program. So then have, it's almost like the peer,
Yes.
So,
that's the-
Yeah,
having the story.
I think, yeah, too, a goal of mine is to do some more outreach to some of the larger businesses too. I won't call out their names specifically, but I think some of them could use some pick me up with signage. Some of them have temporary signage right now. And so, yeah. So, you know, I think there's a lot more work that could be done with this program, but I think it's a good starting point. I think we should be happy with the amount of people that have applied so far. So we're going to apply.
Thank you. Just quickly, item number 7, for announcements, so we're going to talk about Town Day. I know a bunch of folks said they were gonna be there, but I was hoping maybe we could figure out a schedule. It's 1 to 4?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 1 to 4. I know Will has to cut out, I think about 3 o'clock. Was anyone else thinking they would come in, be a part of?
Actually gonna be outside.
Unfortunately, I'm gonna be away this weekend. The bank also kind of was hoping that we have some of us be there, but unfortunately, I have a commitment this weekend and won't be there on Saturday.
Oh, yeah, okay, great. Okay, very good. Any other announcements? Anyone has? Rocco, any announcements?
I do not. Thank you.
Ali? No. So we have to figure out next month's meeting, with the 4 of us. So folks can look at their calendars. Will has requested that we can maybe push it back from the 6 o'clock.
The 7th?
Does 7 work for folks? Or is that too late? 6:30 better? 6:30 better?
6:30 is better for me, speaking for myself.
6:30 better for you, Erin?
Hope I can make anything work. I'm here to help you guys.
Same.
Same, okay.
Yep.
Do we want to go back to Wednesdays or Thursdays is better?
Looks like Wednesdays might have been better. It looks like there's a bunch of people who aren't here that are usually here, maybe because it's the day.
Probably Wednesdays?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You'd also be getting to finance committee on Thursdays in this room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wednesdays would be
Yep,
better.
there's your answer.
Great. How about the 23rd? Do we want to do mid-October? Do we want to do one sooner so that we can take care of some of the ARPA stuff? With the 16th?
I'm free from just about every Wednesday at 6:30 or 7 in October. So as far as that goes, I'm wide open.
I personally will not have many updates for you guys
No,
with that
that's-
meeting. Okay.
That's fine. Can you do the 9th?
Of October.
Oh, I'll be gone.
Um, Yes.
Still going, Aaron?
But you guys can still carry on without me.
Oh,
Come on, what's the meeting without you?
Rocco, can you do the 9th?
Sure.
I would just encourage you guys to think about just your frequency. You meet more than most others and
Yeah.
we've already had one.
We are very mindful of the
Yeah.
time on this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just, I know like, you know, that there's one member we that was lost so far. I'm just concerned about that for you guys.
But Rocco, you're not available on the 23rd, right?
I'm not sure right now on that. My daughter is actually having a baby and I may have to go the last week in October. I may have to go to a baby shower in Maryland, so I just don't know the timing of that. Sorry to say.
Do we want to try the 9th?
About the 16th? Right in the middle.
We lose Chris on the 16th.
Oh,
Can you move
Okay.
your day?
You can do it without me. It's fine.
We-
I won't be-
if we can all do the 9th, that's fine. That's fine with me,
Fine, works.
The pirate.
Aaron.
Could you move your day to like a Tuesday?
I can't do Tuesdays. So my hope is our next meeting will be very much focused on voting on what we've talked about.
There's some votes I think we have to talk about. too.
Correct,
Mhm.
correct, yeah.
There's also, I know a memorandum of understanding had circulated through the town council.
Yes.
What I would suggest is that those are part of the meeting materials. So what you may want to do, Madam Chair, is perhaps have that in circulation earlier as your meeting material packet just circulated earlier. Obviously, you can't have discussions amongst yourselves about them.
Correct, yeah.
But that way, if anyone has any feedback, they could bring it to the meeting versus taking the meeting to do that.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think it should come from the town, so not, it shouldn't, I don't, so that was a little bit of a, I think it should go out to all the members from, someone within administration within the town versus.
I mean, the meeting materials can go out how, you know, they can go out through the chair, they can go out through, you know.
It's a legal, my thinking is it's a legal town document, so it should come from the town.
I mean, as long as someone provides it to you from the town, I think you're fine. I mean, like we had it circulating packet, but I think the sooner you have that at least in circulation, people can look at it at their leisure and then
Mhm.
they provide feedback on that date
Mhm.
or submit it to you if they can.
I agree, yeah, I
That would
agree.
be the only thing, because I know that there's been some questions of the community about how that would work, and that, I think that would be the cleanest way of doing it.
No, I agree.
And that gives you plenty of time.
So are we saying October 9th at 6:30 for these 4? And then I'll reach out to. everyone.
Fine.
Send an email to folks.
And after that, maybe consider finding like a standing day, like the third Wednesday.
Third
once you get
Wednesday
all
of the
that-
month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just so everyone can plan accordingly.
Just want
So
to
did
remind
it-
everyone too, I'm sorry, I should mention this, that there are a few firms that are up.
Yes.
Will is being one of them, and there's also a vacancy.
Yep.
The deadline is tomorrow to apply, and the 20th, so it's tomorrow.
Mhm.
And I just make sure that anyone who is interested, make sure you have applied or reapplied, and anyone that you know who might be interested, please have them apply as well relative to that. And that's all on the town website,
Yes, thank you.
but it's important. People sometimes when they're on these committees, forget they have to reapply to
Right.
stay on them.
I think Ann already has. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, Ann already has. We'll reach out to Will, make sure he's. Thank you. That was the other answer. So we don't take a, can we do a motion on adjourn? We can't, right? How do we adjourn?
You can actually just adjourn ultimately.
So meeting is adjourned.
Okay,
Thank you, everyone.
thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye, Marco.